Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
With all our talk of boosters, we've not talked about COP, where it is another day. Urgent action to support countries on the front line of climate change. It's Adaptation, Loss and Damage Day. Let me reread that. Adaptation, Loss and Damage Day. Now, to put that into English, let's turn to Conservative MP and International Trade Secretary Anne-Marie Trevelyan. What exactly is happening then today in language that I can understand, Secretary of State? Good morning.
Good morning, Nick. One of the key pillars of the Paris Agreement was adaptation alongside finance and mitigation. And we've made it a central part of our UK presidency to make sure that adaptation and resilience is absolutely at the centre of both the conversation and indeed how we shift the funding that the developing countries use to help those developing countries to do. So in the most climate vulnerable countries, a lot of them are small island developing states, and some of the poorest and most vulnerable of our nations across the planet, weather and climate shocks are already coming at them hard and fast. We see the footage day in, day out. Now, the challenge is that those countries need to both become more resilient and to adapt so that they can continue to live in their communities. So in my travels, I've been the international champion on adaptation for COP26 all year, and we've been travelling, meeting people. So, for instance, cocoa farmers in Central America, where cocoa is very sensitive to temperature change. So they need new and greater tree cover so that the cocoa plants don't frazzle in the heat. So investments at a local level to help those farmers change their planting systems, where you've got
how will we ensure the money gets to the cocoa farmers?
So that's really important. So a number of the funds that exist, and one of the part of the funding that of the 290 million that the UK is committing today, and other countries will make other commitments, is through something called the Adaptation Fund, which was set up through the Paris Agreement. It's one of the sort of formal systems that everyone has confidence in, which takes funds right to those local levels, to municipal community investments, so that local people have control. So for me, one of the important issues is also to make sure that that money ends up in the hands of the women who are doing a lot of the work on the ground. And this is a really, really great set of announcements today, and we will be hearing all day from those who are in the front line of climate shocks and how this makes a difference for them.
Undoubtedly very worthy, but some of my listeners will wonder why £290 million can be found in part to help cocoa farmers in Central America. Back in the United Kingdom, the temporary uplift of universal credit had to be stopped, so people have to choose to heat or eat. How do you justify that?
So part of the funds today is part of the climate funds that the Prime Minister committed. In fact, he doubled them as part of our overseas development funding to 11.6 billion. He's made a commitment that if the economy improves, we'll put another billion in. It's not either or. We have got to help solve and balance the challenges across the world of these climate shocks that are coming, alongside making sure that we support obviously our own communities. And you'll have heard in the budget just a few weeks ago that the Chancellor changed the percentage of cash that you can take home at the end of the week through universal credit, which has improved substantially all those who are out working hard and getting the top-ups they need to support them through universal credit. So we are looking at this from both sides. Government, of course, is never only one strand at a time. We work across many spheres. We have to help as many communities as we can to be resilient. In the COP26 space, this is, as the Prime Minister says, a really urgent imperative for us all to focus in on, and not only in order to help those vulnerable countries, but at home we have to adapt too. We have to think about how we as individuals can make a difference as part of our challenge to meet net zero.
There's going to be, just moving to a couple of other matters, there's going to be a debate about parliamentary standards later today. Will the government be accepting any proposal which would bar an MP from taking a role as a paid consultant?
So I'm obviously up in Glasgow, Nick, but I understand that the debate this afternoon, I no doubt, will cover a broad range of issues that colleagues will raise that they're concerned by. And of course, Mr. Speaker will be listening and hearing that. And I think he will be planning to take forwards the key issue, which was that colleagues from across the House have felt that the existing standards system doesn't have an adequate an appeal.
Do you think an MP should be
process
paid
in it,
as
and
a
that therefore that will
consultant? I'm sorry to interrupt, Secretary of State. Do you think, you personally, would you support an MP continuing to take a role as a paid consultant?
So I think the richness that comes from colleagues having second jobs.
Yes, £500,000 is pretty rich,
but
my point is whether it's right politically.
So I think. So across the piece, should it be a lobbying role? Personally, I think if there's a lobbying role, my view is that isn't necessarily the right way forwards. But I wouldn't want to see second jobs stop because, some of the doctors and nurses who've continued to do shifts through COVID have brought an incredible, sharp end information to the House of Commons to help ministers make decisions and to hear about the realities. So I think this can't be a blanket decision. But at a personal level, I would say I don't think having a role when you are an MP that is a lobbying role is necessarily appropriate.
If I put a cheque for £3 million in the post of the Prime Minister, can I become a Lord?
You'd have to go through a whole committee assessing whether or not you were worthy, Nick, and whether you had done enough in your civic duty.
So it's a rubber stamp. So
as a journalist for many years. No, it's not a rubber stamp.
Well, it's all right for Lords Lupton, Spencer, Cruddas and Fraser, so presumably all right for Lord Ferrari. To whom do I make the cheque payable?
And it's all right. And it's all right for Lord Sugar and a number of union barons. This is not about political colour. This is about people who are put forward by political parties who have served their communities through all sorts of different ways. Running a business and employing thousands and thousands of people shouldn't be a bar to also being in the House of Lords. We want our upper chamber to bring a richness of voices and a depth of understanding of our country, from scientific experts through to businessmen and all sorts of others who are going to help ensure that we do the best we can when we're making legislation, and the system that is in place to review them is very thorough. And I continue to think that the upper chamber brings enormous value to our parliamentary system.
Also, I would imagine, last couple of points, Secretary of State, enormous value that the links now between the UK and the US reopen as of, I think, about 32 minutes' time. Anne-Marie Trevelyan.
Yes. I think this is very, very welcome news for everyone, for families wanting to reconnect, indeed for businesses who want to do bilateral trade. Speaking as the Trade Secretary, I've had many businesses who are very excited about the chance to get out there and talk to their counterparts and find markets for their wares. This is really important, but I think especially for families, this is going to be really great news, and we're very, very pleased that those routes are opening again.
Lastly, can you clarify, there were headlines yesterday that we could be in a situation equaling no booster, no travel. That is the booster, some refer to it as the third jab. Is the government actively working on that?
So I think the really important thing on the booster question, and in fact I booked in mine yesterday, I went online and did it.
You're far too young. You're obviously somehow sliding under.
Oh, bless you. You've made my days. Sadly, that is not true.
Right.
However, I was really impressed. It took me 5 minutes. I'm booked in.
Good.
7th of September, I'll have my booster jab. And that's what's so important, is that everyone, if they've already had their double jab, gets the jab, because it helps ease the strain on our health service.
Will there be no booster, no travel? Will it result in no booster, no travel, do you think?
So I think one of the interesting issues, as ever, is you can't go to some countries if you don't have a yellow fever vaccine. How other countries choose to set out their rules and regulations is not within our gift. And what we need to be doing as the UK now is ensuring that our citizens have the best protection they can. The vaccine is an extraordinary gift to mankind.
When you have your
we
booster,
must all make charge
that
of it.
will be when you have your booster. Lastly, Secretary, that will then be on your NHS record, will it? It will get transferred, so that if it were to be necessary to show to another country, or indeed to show in the UK that you'd had your booster, it will be on your NHS health report.
Yes, in just the same way that they are now. So with the work I've been doing travelling as part of COP26 on the adaptation piece, I've always travelled with a copy of my NHS app, which has the dates of the two vaccines that I've had. And indeed
there seems to be some confusion as to whether the booster there, but it's good to hear what you say. That does support what I would imagine would be the desire, whether, of course, it's actually working. But safe travelling as and when you need to, and I hope your jab goes well. Thank you for your time today. Anne-Marie Trevelyan is International Trade Secretary, appearing on LBC. We're here at 8 o'clock. The news is next.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.